FightSaga.com and Halftime Pizza proudly present WAWR Week Radio Chats with ring announcer and commentator Joseph Heron.
Guys, welcome. Happy Friday to all of you. And I ordinarily, guys, I would be, either drinking or going out with my ex, but not doing that anymore. So, I thought it would be fitting to actually do a short program tonight on this beautiful Friday evening, and address something that I forgot to bring up during my last WAWR Week Radio Chats episode with my brother G Funky. I forgot about an entire card completely flying under the radar this weekend. And it's hard to fault both G Funky and myself because, not that these fighters aren't excellent, and not that this card, more than likely will be entertaining, prove to be entertaining, and it's on Showtime. But, it's because of the other two big events that were going on, right? So I just thought I'd come on here, visit with you good people, and give this card some shine. And in the main event, once again, it's going to be taking place in Baltimore, Maryland, Oxon Hill, Maryland, at the MGM National Harbor, right outside of Baltimore, right? And it's a PBC event, and it's going to be on Showtime. And in your main event of the evening, it's going to be Emmanuel Rodriguez versus Melvin Lopez for the vacant IBF bantamweight title. And once again, in the co-main event, Trayvon Marshall versus Gabriel Maestre. Well, be still my heart. And then opening the triple header, opening the broadcast on Showtime, it's going to be the return of Gary Antoine Russell. Is going to be taking on, the overweight Kent Cruz, who failed to make weight this afternoon. But my apologies, guys, because of the return of Anthony Joshua. Obviously, even with an interim opponent, last-minute opponent, Robert Elenius, it's still a big event. And it affects the health of the sport, right? Especially in the UK. Whenever the big attractions are on center stage, it's worth noting, right? And when you consider the impact that his fights have on, the health of the business. And then you look at on ESPN from Arizona, that's a can't miss fight, can't miss matchup. Emmanuel Navarrete defends his WBO title against Oscar Valdez. It should be an instant classic, a barn burner. But this is indeed the theater of the unexpected. Whether or not it plays out that way, that remains to be seen. But I can't imagine it not being just a thrilling event for however long it lasts. So to my defense, I completely forgot about this one. And once again, this exposes a huge problem within the business of boxing. And we touch on this all the time. Emmanuel Rodriguez, when was the last time he fought? From Puerto Rico. When is the last time he fought? He hasn't fought since October of last year. And this was on the undercard of Deontay Wilder versus Robert Elenius, in which he did a paint job and outclassed Gary Antonio Russell, formerly undefeated before that fight, right? And once again, he was, just wiping the floor, completely outclassing Gary Antonio Russell. And then, because of an accidental headbutt, he couldn't continue after the 10th round, right? And so, he ended up really making a statement, arriving on center stage, right? In the undercard of a big event. But there's a problem, though. When you don't follow it up with a performance and stay in the public consciousness, guess what? People forget. This is a huge problem for mostly PBC. Top Rank, they do a very good job of, well, consistently staging events that feature their prospects, their budding superstars, right? They do the very best job of nurturing and cultivating future stars. PBC, unfortunately, they're very top heavy. Once again, Al Heyman has a huge roster of still 200 fighters. And unfortunately, he doesn't have the same number of TV dates he once had with all of that talent. That's a lot of mouths to feed for only one boxing outlet, Showtime. And unfortunately, ShowBox is run very different than Showtime Championship Boxing, in which they work with every single promoter, and that's a great thing. And it's almost like Friday Night Fights. So this is a title fight. Technically, it's going to be Showtime Championship Boxing, but there are a lot of, well, unknowns and fighters who are, well, unknown to mainstream and casual fans, unknown to a lot of diehards even, right? But it's not a bad card. This should be a very entertaining card. Before we go any further, guys, and talk about all the matches on this, I do want to give a shout out to my brother Tycho TV. Thank you for joining me this beautiful Friday evening, brother. Yeah, and it's strange. Friday night, I'm not out with my ex, and I'm stone cold sober. How do you like that? It's a different world through different lenses. Thank you for joining me, my friend. Also, Gus, what's good with you, my friend? Thank you for joining us. You have Valdez by KO. A lot of people do have Valdez by KO. But I will say this. You state that you just put $100 on it. Keep in mind, Gus, you are betting against Coach Gogi. History tells us not very wise. But on the bright side, here's your silver lining. The last time I bet on a big event, and once again, I was inebriated, so I usually don't make these kinds of bets, but I put $5,000. I put $1,000 on a straight up victory for Zhilei Zhang when he fought Joe Joyce in the UK. And Coach Gogi picked Joe Joyce. I just had that feeling that he was going to whoop his ass. With that said, though, if Howard Foster hadn't pulled the trigger on that, well, bulbous eye of Joe Joyce, even though the doctor said he could continue, right? But Howard Foster saw fit to call a halt to the bout. Before that happened, well, Joe Joyce was coming on, and he was putting his punches together, and he was cranking up his output. And Zhilei Zhang, well, he started to, well, take breaks. And his output wasn't nearly as dominant as the first 4 or 5 rounds. And so that's worth noting. But I will say this, though. The last time I won some long grain, yeah, I did bet against Gogi. But just be warned, he's only been wrong twice in the past 2.5 years. That's something. Want to give a big shout out to my brother Gus, or I'm sorry, Trayvon Marshall looks promising. Yes, he does. And he's going to be fighting Gabriel Maestre tomorrow night. Holy shit. Yeah, former Olympian from Colombia. And we all know who Gabriel Maestre is now. And that's not his fault, really. But yeah, he got a gift decision against Michael Fox last year, right? And because of that, we found out that, yeah, Gabriel Maestre is being silently managed by someone who has no business managing fighters. And that's Gilberto Mendoza of the WBA. His dad did it. Now he's doing it. And it's always a fighter from Colombia. Why do you think old man Ismael Barroso got that opportunity and was ranked so highly to get that shot at Rolly Romero? Why do you think that was? Only in the WBA, buddy. Only in the WBA. So I'm looking forward to that, though. Also, my brother Eric R., thank you for joining us, sir. God bless you, my friend. Also, John McCuck. Salute to you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Also give a big shout out to my brother Jesus M. Thank you for always supporting War Week Radio, sir. And he says, Navarrete by TKO 11. You know what? Either outcome wouldn't surprise me. That's what makes this fight so intriguing. And that's why we completely forgot about the Showtime card. Once again, that's my apologies. But yeah, it's not one that seemingly sizzles on the bout sheet, right? But you know, once again, this is indeed the theater of the unexpected. All of these fights could play out, well, a lot better than any of the two fighters that we actually showcased on Wednesday night with G Funky, right? Once again, in the main event of the evening, Emmanuel Rodriguez, this is a problem for PBC moving forward. Once again, this guy had a brilliant performance on a pay-per-view. And he's just now following it up almost a year later. Like, this is not good. This is why I always stress to any managers or any promoters like Samson or Lou DiBella, you know what? It's not enough, these sporadic Showtime cards. It's not enough. One, you need to keep these guys a little more, well, a lot more active. Let's just face it. And, well, once again, that activity level, and you stage these events in mainstream areas, not just in these sterile casinos. Put them in mainstream America, USA, where you can develop and cultivate ticket sellers. Guys, I once again, G Funky and I touched on it on Wednesday. We can't stress enough how important it is to be a ticket seller. Because if Demetrius Andrade could actually sell tickets, yeah, he wouldn't be as inactive as he usually is. But once again, promoters have become lazy in this era of the business, where they're not willing to, well, grind and promote events on the local level, selling tickets. And to be honest with you, I can't blame them. I work with several promoters, and it is a really hard business, guys. And you really have to bust your ass getting sponsorship, putting cards together, hustling, selling tickets. It's really difficult, and it's really competitive. So I have a huge respect for anyone who gets into this business on any level, because it's not easy. I mean, think about this. How many times have you seen promoters with deep pockets come in and lose their ass on their first event? Look at BLK Prime with Terrence Crawford, right? They lost their ass. And all of that nonsense about Terrence Crawford, oh, I'm making $10 million. I'm going to get paid before the event. He got 4.5. That's it. That's it. Want to give a big shout out to my sister, Denise Wards. Thank you for joining us, sister. Yeah, it's good to have you back on the chat. I really look forward to seeing your comments every time you're with us. So thank you for spending this, I guess, for the next 40 minutes. We're going to be on until midnight Eastern, right? Yeah. Eric R. has the beat. I felt bad for Fox. How could you not? He was on Fox. He put forth a very, very impressive performance. And wow, he gets jobbed because Gabriel Maestre is the house fighter. And this isn't just me speculating. I know this to be a fact, that he's doing something that he has no business doing. And once again, he did it just like his dad. He is managing fighters from Colombia and giving them these opportunities. Now, do they deserve it? No, you can make an argument for that, but that doesn't mean you should get preferential treatment with the judges. Holy shnikes. Yeah, that was embarrassing for our beloved boxing. And it's very, now once again on this show, all of you guys understand, I consistently stick up for the integrity and the health of the sport, right? It's impossible, though, for me to stick up for this. This was terrible. And so now we're seeing Maestre once again on Showtime. We'll see what happens, guys. But yeah, I like the matchup. It's we'll see what happens though. Jesus says, Joe, you think Emiliano Vargas could have been a replacement for Raymond Murataya in face of Diego Torres? That's not something that Top Rank would be interested in doing at this time. Think about this. They have a lot of interest in Emiliano Vargas. At this level, at this time, he's not ready to face someone like Raymond Murataya, who's a legitimate contender and should be competing for a major world title as early as next year, right? Yeah, Emiliano is a great prospect, and he's been impressive. But, yeah, he still needs a lot more seasoning. And he's only at the 6th-round stage right now. So, no. I will say this, though. I really like Lindolfo. Hold on. Let me pull up that card just so I can speak more intelligently. Because, once again, it is Friday. Hold on. Let me pull up the Showtime, or I'm sorry, the Top Rank card now. And guys, I do have to get a lot of things off my chest, and I'm getting ready to just get on my soapbox and go off because of the blatant ignorance and unprofessionalism that some of these YouTube channels, well, consistently display. And it makes it very difficult. Once again, there's an old saying, if you can't help, don't hinder. And that's exactly what these idiots are doing. They're not helping anything, but they're hurting the business. And they're making it more difficult for real journalists who actually want to do their job correctly. It's making it more difficult to get interviews. And I'm going to just go off at the tail end of the show, guys. So please stay tuned for that. But yeah, let me pull up the Top Rank card real quick. I actually really like this card. Yeah. And were you guys surprised that Emmanuel Navarrete was 1 ounce, or less than an ounce, I should say? Well, no. A little bit over an ounce. Overweight. Were you guys surprised about that? I was actually very surprised. And does this say anything about this fight that we're going to see tomorrow? How do you think they looked at the weigh-in? We'll talk all about that in a little bit. But yeah, now in the co-main event, Lindolfo Delgado. Guys, there is so much to like about Lindolfo Delgado. He's fighting Jair Valtierra. That should be an excellent fight. But expect Lindolfo Delgado to shine. There's so much to like about this dude. And G-Funky touched on it on Wednesday. He actually thinks that, well, he actually favors and he thinks he's a more attractive prospect for Top Rank than Raymond Murataya. 17-0 with 13 knockouts. Robert Garcia fighter. And up to this point, boy, he's looked very impressive. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he fares against Jair Valtierra. Right? And in my opinion, this fight, although I was really looking forward to Murataya versus Torres. But yeah, this should be a comparable co-main event. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also really looking forward to, seeing the return of Emiliano Vargas. I'm also looking forward to seeing the return of Richard Torres Jr., right? Also, you've got on the card Sergio Rodriguez fighting Eduardo Ayala. Also, Antonio Mireles fighting Dewan Calloway. This should be a very entertaining card. But guys, once again, the main event. Wow, what a beautiful and potentially spectacular main event of the evening. Yeah. So once again, Emiliano, not ready. Not ready for that kind of smoke. Although he does look promising. There's a lot to like about Emiliano Vargas with Top Rank. Eric R says, Valdez, his last 3 fights, well, he looks like he's burning the candle on both ends. Robson and his last fight were hard fought. Robson was controversial, and Shakur completely outclassed him. No. That's why I think that's the primary reason why I'm up in the air, right? With this fight card. In fact, if you look at Gogi, his prediction on Sunday night last week or earlier this week, this is one of the few times I've ever seen him really deliberate when he's making his prediction. Like, I could tell he really wasn't comfortable picking Vaquero. But he understands that, look, Valdez, he's got a lot of miles on his odometer, right? He's been in some wars. He's been in some tough fights. And to his credit, that's his only loss, Mr. Shakur Stevenson. But this is a 32-year-old fighter. Once again, I can't believe he's that old. I remember when he turned pro. I was one of the first interviews for him when he was at Top Rank. Oh, boy. It was on the undercard of a Nonito Donaire fight. Right? He's 32 now. And with his fight style, and once again, he's fighting more intelligently now. But yeah, he's got some miles on the odometer, and that can't be ignored, right? But when you look at Emmanuel Navarrete, well, there's an old saying in boxing: when you fight like El Vaquero, you're going to have a short but glorious career. And that always proves to be true. So, yeah, you can't ignore that. And the fact that he's having trouble or had trouble making weight, that speaks volumes now, doesn't it? He's only 28 years old, but that is an old 28-year-old fighter. And especially one where, he's got no defense. He's not he will never be accused of being a great boxer, right? But he's tricky, and he does have craft. He's going to come right at you, but he does it very intelligently. I'm not saying he doesn't take any shots. He does. He's got no defense, but he closes the distance, a la Omar Figueroa and Brandon Figueroa, where he will switch, give you different looks to try and disrupt your timing and rhythm by switching from orthodox to southpaw, southpaw to orthodox. We'll see if that proves to be, well, enough for the very hard counterpunching style of Oscar Valdez. This is going to be a great fight, guys. Going to be a tremendous fight. I can't imagine this one not living up to the billing, right? But thank you for the comment, my friend, and I agree with you. Adolfo Horta, welcome to the show, sir. Valdez KOs Vaquero in 7. You know, once again, I can imagine it going either way. That's what makes this fight so intriguing. Is there likelihood of one man getting stopped? Well, because of their defensive lapses and their just the way they fight, the hard, consistent aggression of Vaquero, and just that one punch knockout power, especially in the left hook of Oscar Valdez. Yeah, I can see one of them going night-night for sure. John, he says, I'm disappointed the co-main event was scrapped. Of course, because this was actually going to be a tough test for Raymond Murataya. He was fighting a very highly touted prospect from Mexico, in Diego Torres, right? And Coach Gogi is very familiar with him. But yeah, it is what it is, guys. This is boxing. And just like the card that, well, I'm working on for promoter TMB Promotions, right? But I'm not going to be ring announcing. I'm not going to be commentating. In fact, he called me last night really late, and he asked me if I was available to MC the weigh-in earlier today. And I'm like, brother, 11:30 at night, the night before the weigh-in? Chingao, dude, you got to give me more notice than that. But anyway, he's a great guy, and ordinarily I do it, but I had plans. I was very, very busy today. And even then, he scheduled 11 bouts on the card. Yeah, 4 of them fell off. So he's rolling with only 7 tomorrow. It happens all the time, guys. This is why, as a promoter, you always schedule 10 or 11 bouts at least on the fight card. Because, well, it's inevitable. At least 2 or 3 fall off. And it could be for various reasons. Could be me misses weight. He can't agree on the money. Doesn't pass his medical. So many reasons. And it's absurd, but that's the fight game, guys. So as a young promoter, if you guys ever want to get in this business, yeah, at least schedule 10 or 11, and you're more than likely going to end up with probably 8 or even 7. This is a tough, tough line of work. And once again, I have so much respect for everyone who attempts to get involved with boxing, because it is not easy. In the immortal words of Don Warwick Chargan, well, it just takes one stinker of an event to put your ass in the breadline. And that's a God's honest truth, guys. I've seen guys lose their ass because they didn't know enough about the business and they didn't align themselves with someone who did. Guys, it is really difficult, guys. Jesus M. Yeah, this doesn't surprise me one bit, guys. This is what a difference it makes when you have not only the USC brand, and they've done a great job cultivating the brand, not so much the fighters. So if they don't have a huge draw in the main event, it's still going to do well because, let's just face it, it's UFC. Then they do this strategically. Dana White has done a brilliant job just cultivating the UFC brand over the last, decade or so? Almost 2 decades. He's done a really good job understanding that it's healthier for the sport as a business if you don't put the fighters' names first and foremost, if you don't make it, and especially in MMA, where you never see careers, lasting more than a decade usually. Guys, these MMA fighters, they take a ton of punishment. And so, look how short Ronda Rousey's rise and fall was, right? Look at Conor McGregor. He's done. Look at John Jones. He's been semi-retired for years. So, yeah, he said, it's much wiser for us as a business to use these fighters to help build our brand, but when they've long gone, it's still going to be UFC. So we're going to title every event UFC whatever, number 290, right? Just as an example. And we're going to put the fighters a close second. But our focus is going to be UFC. So even if it's not a sizzling matchup on paper, yeah, we'll still be able to cultivate a consistent and healthy crowd, something that boxing never did, right? At least boxing hasn't done it since the 90s, right? Yeah. But yeah, brilliant job understanding the business of Dana White, right? This is why I'm not surprised. But yeah, 750,000 pay-per-views. That's honestly, I don't believe that, because 750,000 is really good, especially nowadays with piracy being the big problem it is. I would wager that it probably did between 400,000 and 500,000 only. Once again, I never inquire about these events, but now you have me curious about it. So, yeah, I think I'm going to ask around about this. So thank you for bringing that up, brother. I'll give you the answer on Sunday. Please remind me, right, to give you what I found, because I'm going to call about it tomorrow. Also, John, Top Rank has done a good job promoting the fight card on their YouTube channel. They usually do. Yeah, you know what, man? I will say this, and they can take a page out of the wrestling WWE handbook, WWF, right? Like reality TV, most people don't realize, who watch reality TV, they don't realize that a lot of it, like Curb Your Enthusiasm, now once again, it's all ad-libbed, it's all natural, but there's a storyline written and there's an outline that these people should follow. Once again, they're not scripting everything, but yeah, it's definitely an outline for a show. Top Rank needs to make some situations like this for their fighters, so people get to see a little bit more of their personality leading up to the fight. I think it would really help in, just developing their fan base a little bit more. But yeah, it's hard to complain about Top Rank and the great job that they consistently do with all of their budding prospects and superstars. And they are second to none, guys. They are the very best. And it's impossible to argue with that. Once again, going back to this fight card on PBC, Showtime, they're the exact opposite of Top Rank PBC. They don't have any more outlets. So with their huge roster of talent, there are too many mouths to feed and not enough dates. So what do? Well, if you're Al Heyman, you're forced to go looking for another outlet. And Showtime, oh boy. You know what? Let's just hope, guys, that... hold on. I do have to, before I finish my thought. Hold on. Hold on. Let me go to Teach. Welcome to the show, sir. Says Navarrete wins. I can see it going either way, but it won't surprise me if Navarrete wins, especially after hearing Coach Gogi on Sunday. But I love this fight, guys. What's not to love? Once again, they're hoping that this is another great super featherweight trilogy, right? Between two Mexican fighters. And once again, you saw at the weigh-in, Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera were in the building. In fact, they're going to be ringside for the event. You know what? I think Top Rank does a very good job of showing that lineage consistently. Even though it's not the same product it was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. But we're having a terrific year, and it's important that they actually remind everyone, guys, this is still one of the oldest sports in existence. This is still our beloved boxing. These two guys are cut from the same cloth as Eric Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera. It's very important that fans understand this lineage and context. Now, will it be a trilogy? That's up to you guys. And that's up to the gentlemen in the ring. Is it going to be competitive enough? Is it going to be the barn burner we all hope and expect to see? And that's up to you guys. If you guys demand a rematch, well, then guess what? The network is going to support it, and it's going to want another one. But like I said, it's all up to the fighters, and it's entirely up to the real bosses of boxing, the fans, right? Diego Torres' resume, not great. Well, look, that's the funny thing about fans, and this is why I always respond to something like this, Jesus, with Emmanuel Stewart's quote, right? You know, resumes, records, and trinkets are for fans, writers, and network executives who don't quite understand what they're looking at in the ring just yet. Because once again, Diego Torres can only face who his promoter and the network put in the ring with him, right? This was obviously his toughest test to date. Was he a live dog, though? Of course. That's why he was in the co-main event. This was a great matchup in which, well, I gave Diego Torres, I made him a live dog. I thought he had a very, well, not a very, just a good chance of pulling off the upset here, especially if Raymond Murataya is looking past him. It's easy to do, guys, in boxing. Yeah, this is a problem, though, man. See, Raymond Murataya, what was his last fight, right? His last fight was on the undercard of Haney Lomachenko in the co-main event. Guess what? He's back already, or at least he was going to be before he was injured. Going back to the Showtime card, this is a problem. In my opinion, promoters, Al Heyman, really should invest, or at least should buy onto other local or club or regional promoters' fight cards. Keep them busy and keep them in the public consciousness and keep them returning in off-TV bouts, non-championship fights, where they can become and be nurtured and cultivated into ticket sellers. Look at a real stud like Jaron Ennis. Before his last outing, when was the last time he fought? Been a year. And when you're that special, everyone and their mother should know who you are. But unfortunately, his promoters have done a piss poor job of managing his career, cultivating his level of attraction. Once again, guys, if you can't sell tickets and you're as dangerous as Jaron Ennis, guess what? Everyone's going to either demand a ton of money to face you, or they're going to avoid you like the plague. And because you don't have any clout with the network, you can't sell tickets, they're going to be able to. Look at a guy like Demetrius Andrade. When's the last big fight he's ever been in? This is a problem, and you're talking about a guy with elite level skills. Yes, he's got a terribly awkward style, and he's a guy that you avoid if you can, because that is, just from speaking with everyone in the business, that is by far the worst possible style matchup, regardless of talent level. Look how Teofimo Lopez looked against Sandor Martin. Another similar style, right? A guy who is very crafty, moves around the ring extremely well, very high ring IQ. Those guys like Otto Wallin in the heavyweight division, this is why he can't get a meaningful fight. Because he is by far, because he can't sell tickets, he's considered by everyone to be more risk than reward. This is a problem when cultivating and nurturing the future stars of the sport. If you can't sell tickets, and if you're not actively in the public consciousness, guess what? People are going to avoid you like the plague if you've got skills and are considered more risk than reward. If you become a ticket seller and can bring money to the table, guess what? Guys can't avoid you. Ever. They cannot avoid you, and it's not in their best interest to do it. Because you actually, like, look at a guy like, think about Floyd Mayweather, right? Back in the day. Biggest star of the sport by far. And there was a very good chance if you fought Floyd, almost 100%, that you were going to lose and lose decisively. But how many people didn't care and wanted to take that risk anyway? Because they knew it was more than likely going to result in a career high payday. Everyone was waiting in line to, well, compete and to try and win the Mayweather sweepstakes. Now, once again, guys, that was way before the era of inflated purses. Do you remember, on average, it was, it's laughable now, right? But that's back when fighters, well, fought for the realistic market value. And Mayweather, the average an opponent made to fight Mayweather was $3 million. Now, when you consider, it's laughable now, right? Because it's gotten way out of hand. And once again, we talked about it on Wednesday. This is, well, easily one of the biggest problems facing the sport, the health of it. Because when you consider that Demetrius Andrade in his last fight, well, not his most recent, the one on the Gervonta Davis undercard, but before that, with the Zone, his last fight in the Zone, he made $3 million rock. Compare that to someone who had just won the Mayweather sweepstakes, right? He's making the same amount as one of Mayweather's opponents outside of Canelo and Manny Pacquiao, right? Isn't that laughable? That should put everything in perspective. You're fighting the biggest star of the sport, and you're making less than Devin Haney? That puts in perspective what a terrible problem this is, right? Jesus also says Raymond better prospect than Delgado. That's debatable. Honestly, there's a lot to like about both men. And they both have looked very impressive up to this point. But yeah, Raymond Murataya looked spectacular against a very tricky and crafty southpaw or counterpuncher like Nakatila. He whooped his ass, and he was very patient in setting up the coup de grace, right? Brilliant performance. Delgado got touched up a lot versus Omar Aguilar. Raymond, more athletic, better defense. Once again, guys have off nights. I've seen Raymond Murataya have an off night. Well, he got floored early in one of his most recent fights. Once again, guys, this is a fight. And you don't know what these guys go through on a personal level. And that's what makes a 50-50 fight so difficult to predict. If you don't have that insider information, like let's look at Saturday night's events, right? Let's look at Anthony Joshua versus Robert Helenius. There are a lot of people in this business, including Ronnie Shields and James Gogi, that don't believe. Well, they call Anthony Joshua Humpty Dumpty. They think he's mentally fragile now, and he'll never be the same. They don't think he's got the appetite, the willingness, the heart to be ever the same and to ever win another major world title. They don't think he has that in him. And we don't know what he's going through in his personal life. Who knows? He could be having woman trouble right now, like Jamal Charlo. But being the classy guy that he is, he would never air that out publicly. We don't know what lingering ailments that he's been fighting through. We don't know how his camp was. And you look at Robert Helenius, everyone's looking at, he just got knocked the fuck out by Deontay Wilder. Boy, there's no shame in that. In fact, everyone who's faced Deontay Wilder, except for Tyson Fury, has been knocked the fuck out. Is that really an indictment of how good he is or how bad he is, of his skill set, his willingness, his heart? And he could view this, right, Robert Helenius, as his last chance for boxing glory and his last big payday if he doesn't at least look good in this fight. There's a lot, guys, going into these fights and these matchups. And if it's a 50-50 fight, even if they're not, it's very difficult to call, right? It's very, very difficult to nail. This is why I always marvel at how good James Gogi's eyes truly are. He sees so many things and once again, I talk to a lot of trainers, and I'm not going to name any, but not to diminish, because I don't want to diminish their value, because they're all great world-class trainers. But most can't do what James Gogi does on a regular basis. And keep in mind, he doesn't even have to watch tape to do it. So once again, guys, Jesus, though, the point is, man, Raymond Murataya as well as Delgado, they're both excellent prospects for not only Robert Garcia, but Top Rank. Future looks bright for both of them. I will say this, though, the more marketable of the two seems to be Raymond Murataya. And that's probably why they have him escalating up the ladder a little quicker, right? Teach says Navarrete wins. I can see that. It says, Joe, how much does Navarrete make per fight for ESPN? Well, more than likely he makes probably over $1 million his last several fights, but not more than that. He's not a huge attraction. He's a champion. multi-division champion, but he's not a huge attraction and not a huge mainstream draw in America. And so, yeah, the thing I love about Top Rank, with the exception of how they treated Devin Haney as well as Terrence Crawford, paying them both absurdly inflated purses that aren't anywhere near their realistic market value. What I love about Top Rank, though, they always pay, aside from those two guys, they always pay what your realistic market value is. And they, once again, they also take into consideration what you've accomplished and what your stature is within the business, the hierarchy of the sport. And so, yeah, they've always, with the exception of if Bob Arum, look, if he wants to gamble on something, just like he did Devin Haney, he paid Devin Haney an inflated purse for that Lomachenko fight, gambling that Lomachenko would win and keep the titles in-house, right? Well, didn't pay off for him. And, yeah, that's why you didn't really see him champion at the bit to pay Devin Haney another absurdly inflated purse, right? But, yeah, Bob Arum's a gambling man. He also gambled with Terrence Crawford's future, thinking that, look, more than likely, I'm going to be able to get that big fight. Because keep in mind, they had just put together a deal with Al Heyman and with Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. So he's like, look, I just put together this blockbuster. So more than likely, if I had to bet, I would bet that it's highly likely that I can put together a no-brainer like Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. And so he paid Terrence Crawford inflated purses that weren't, didn't reflect his realistic market value, just to keep him there, in hopes that he would make that superstar fight, that blockbuster, and he would prove to be, well, the big star that Arum always hoped he would be. And, well, just a little too late. But yeah, Bob Arum, he will gamble like that, but not often. If he thinks you're special, or if he thinks he can come out on top, he will do it and pay inflated purses, but that doesn't happen very often. That's one thing I love about Top Rank. They will pay your market value. But I'll find out for sure, guys. I'll find out for sure what the purses are, and we'll talk about that on Sunday with Coach Gogi. Marcos Chaz, AJ versus Elenius. First, then Navarrete versus Valdez. Great day for boxing. Yeah, and you know, it's a shame that this ShowBox card is on the same time slot as Top Rank, because I do like this card. Emmanuel Rodriguez, boy, he really impressed me when he beat the shit out of Gary Antonio Russell. He whooped his ass, completely outclassed him. And Melvin Lopez is going to be a tough fight. I really like this matchup. It's just a shame that I'm going to have to see the replay of it, because I'm not missing the Top Rank card. You can bet your ass on that. But it does deserve mention, and that's the reason why we're having this show right now. Yeah, Trayvon Marshall, 8-0. Looks to be the goods, but we'll see. We're not going to find out. He's not going to face a ton of resistance against Gabriel Maestre. You can take that shit to the bank. And then also, what's not to love about the return of Gary Antoine Russell? This is a guy who needs to be more active. And they're doing the right thing this time by featuring him around his hometown, which is the DMV area, right? Why haven't they been featuring him in Baltimore or DC? Why haven't they been featuring him on the undercard of a Gervonta Davis fight card? Makes no sense to me. But once again, at least they're, yeah, this is a problem, man, with PBC. They really don't. And I don't know why Tom Brown, maybe it's just the amount of dates that they have. That's the only thing I could think of, because Tom Brown understands how to build and nurture a fighter's level of attraction. He did it very successfully with Andre Ward. No, he wasn't the biggest star, but he was one of the elites, and he was one of the biggest stars of boxing in America at one time. He did it with Paul Williams. He did a fine job in resurrecting James Toney's career when James signed with Goose and Tudor Promotions, and Tom was in charge of navigating his career from that point forward. So the only thing I can attribute it to, because once again, Tom Brown knows talent, and he understands what seasoning a young fighter needs in their ascension to greatness. I have to attribute it to dates. They just don't have enough for the amount of talent that they have. This is a real problem. And yeah, unfortunately, Al Heyman and PBC, while learning on the job, boy, they really burnt a lot of bridges in this business, where not a lot of networks are interested in showcasing PBC prospects. But this is a real problem in cultivating the next budding superstars of PBC. So yeah, guys, I can't stress enough how fighters need to stay active. And if Al Heyman and Tom Brown, if they have to just pay for these young fighters to compete on regional or club shows, then fucking do it. Then do it. Because once again, look at the, I know that he's not a PBC fighter, but look at the piss poor job that Cameron Duncan's been doing with Jaron Ennis. Just terrible, man. Just terrible. So Jesus says, Joe, how many tickets will Navarrete versus Valdez sell? I think that is that venue in Arizona. I think it's a mid-size arena. So it should sell at least 7,000 or 8,000 at least, which is a healthy crowd for that venue. And if not, then, well, there's something wrong with our beloved boxing or Top Rank's promotion of the event. And I don't think so. I think we're going to see a very healthy crowd tomorrow. Because this is, let's just face it, guys, this is one of the best matchups of the entire year, if you're being honest with yourself. Commercially, does it have the same impact on our beloved boxing, the health of it? No. But critically, yeah, we could see emerge from this fight tomorrow an all-time great boxing trilogy. You just never know, and that's what they're building it to be. So let's just hope for the best and expect the unexpected tomorrow night. Marcus Chaz. PBC is trash. All their champions get beat up. Oh, shit. So look, man, there's no shame in losing to a guy like Terrence Crawford. Everyone has who's faced him up to this point. There's no shame in losing to the best heavyweight in boxing, Deontay Wilder. No shame in losing to Tyson Fury. So you know what? I understand you're a fan of one platform over another, but that makes no sense to me, brother. If you're a real boxing fan, you'll get up for a great matchup on any platform, staged by any promoter. And if you don't, well, can you really call yourself a legitimate boxing fan any further? Hey, from this point forward, just admit it and say, hey, man, I only like these. I'm not a boxing fan. I'm a fan of this promoter, or I'm a fan of this fighter. But can you legitimately and honestly call yourself a boxing fan? If you prefer one platform over another and shit all over another promoter and platform. That's just weird to me, guys. I will never understand that logic. That's just horseshit. Marcos, if I'm being completely honest with you, Joey. That's horseshit, and I will never understand that as long as I live. Hopefully, I think you're doing this, and I think, once again, you're just saying this to get a reaction. Well, mission accomplished, my friend. Because I think if you're visiting this channel, which is not designed for casuals, right? I think you're probably a more devoted and better fan than that. Just giving you the benefit of the doubt, brother. Thank you for being here. Jesus also says, Joe, did you watch Dana White trash Showtime boxing production saying they're the worst in the business? Look, dude, I'm so sick and tired of hearing Dana White trash everything boxing. And once again, he's really helped his brand, selling his brand to the less educated combat sports fan, convincing all of these mainstream buffoons that boxing's a dead sport. How long has he been predicting the death of boxing? 20 years at least? So does it surprise me that this nonsense is coming out of his fucking mouth? No, it doesn't. Should you listen? No, you shouldn't. Because it's all shit. Everything that has to do with boxing, he is going to shit all over it to help enhance and sell his brand to the less educated fight fan. Now, obviously, you guys don't have that problem. You guys, and once again, I always take great pride in this, and I always brag about you guys, that you guys, the entire War Week Radio extended family, you guys are much more intelligent and insightful than 95% of the bike fans that I listen to or talk to ever. You guys really know what you're talking about. And once again, it's a pleasure and a joy for me to be able to interact with all of you guys and to chop it up with all of you guys. It's an honor for me, and I feel very blessed. With that said, Dana White, this is a guy who's shitting on Showtime. Well, I will say this. You know how I feel about paying fighters inflated purses, but I feel a lot more strongly about taking advantage of them and shitting all over them and underpaying them, right? He doesn't want marquee superstars. And once again, I talked about this earlier. It's healthier for the sport, for his brand, to promote the brand and exploit these hardworking, underpaid athletes. Now, consider this, guys. When you look at boxing on average, the athletes make 80% on average of the gross. Right? That is more than any other mainstream or a big major pastime in America. What's the worst in terms of mainstream pastime in screwing your athletes? This is what a class guy Dana White is, and no one should listen to his stupid ass from this point forward. It's 13% on average, guys. He rips off his athletes. On average, they only make 13% of the take. Compare that with other sports hovering around 70%. Baseball, basketball, NFL, they're all hovering around 70%. So why is the UFC, how can they get away with only paying their clientele 13%? One, they have a virtual monopoly. And two, these UFC fighters don't have a fighter union. And unfortunately for them, I'm gonna give you a little insight, guys. Have you ever wondered why Dana White, he will not allow any commentators, any fighters to refer to their stand-up style of pugilism as boxing? If you notice, he always refers to it as striking because of the fucking scumbag that he is. And a lot of people initially thought, well, he wants to pit it against boxing, the sport, right? And he wants to make it seem like his brand of pugilism is at a much higher level. Far from it. But no, that's not why. I found out that he never mentions boxing ever, 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 ever. Not in an interview, not when he's referring to his brand, UFC. They're strikers. And he tells all of his commentary. Everyone affiliated with the UFC never referred to it as boxing. And do you know why? Because if he refers to it as striking, and if they're strikers, not boxers, then they're not protected under the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act. So he can pay them. He doesn't have to be transparent with the proceeds and where everything goes. He doesn't have to show them shit because it's not transparent. And that transparency that is demanded by the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act covenant, it doesn't apply to UFC. Isn't that the biggest load of shit that you've ever heard? What a fucking scumbag this guy is. And he understands that, well, just like I talked about Navarrete, going to have a short but glorious career because it's such a physically demanding sport, even more so than boxing. And these guys, let's just face it, they're just not, well, you're allowed to take a lot more punishment in UFC, put it that way, because you apply so many different disciplines. And let's just face it, when it comes to stand-up, yeah, they're terrible boxers, right? They're novice boxers at best. Like, dude, I know several amateurs that would have whooped Nate Diaz's ass last week, right? But that's why, guys, that's why he does it. So if you think I listen to anything Dana White says in his criticisms of boxing, it's very strategic. And he is just, it just showcases what a total scumbag he is. All of this talk about Zuffa Boxing coming in and saving the world of boxing. Man, he couldn't do shit. He couldn't do shit. Hey, if you think Showtime production is trash, come in. Try your hand at boxing. Let's see how that would work out, you worthless, ball-headed fuck. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Oh, Chingao. Chief Funky, thanks for tuning in, brothers. What's up, Joseph? Albert Bell just got a KO. About time he looked for a KO. Yes, I second that. And thank you for supporting all platforms, even on DAZN. And like I said, I will never understand that mentality. That is just complete horseshit, guys. Chingao, man. I will never understand that. Now, look, guys, if you're a dick riding fan who is just support only a handful of fighters, specific fighters, there's nothing wrong with that. But at least admit it. And once again, most dick riding fans, pom-pom wavers, they won't waste their time with this channel because everything that we talk about will go completely over their head. And this is by design. Once again, we started this channel to help educate and promote the business of boxing to where you guys have a greater understanding of why certain things happen and why certain things don't happen, right? And it's not for everybody. But I will say this, boy, the boxing, the sport, the business of it, the fans, that, like, I will be completely honest with you guys. It's gotten to the point, as terrible and as divisive as YouTube has been within the diehard boxing community, and as idiotic and as ignorant as most of these fans sound. Like, honestly, I'll be honest, I can't stand these guys. To me, boxing diehards as a whole, not you guys. You guys are different. But I will be honest, boxing diehards in America, are the worst sports fans maybe in the history of pastime. Anywhere. They've become an embarrassment. They not only just regurgitate all kinds of nonsense and ignorance while thinking in their mind that they're experts. All the while, they don't even financially support their favorite sport any further. They illegally stream everything. So yeah, to be honest with you, I can't stand the great majority of them. You know what? And it's funny. You have trainers and guys like myself who've been in this business for 2 decades. And these assholes will still see fit to fucking think that they know better and pick an argument, pick a fight with a guy like James Gogi, with a guy like Rick Glazier, with a guy like G Funky, with a guy like myself. Guys, it's an embarrassment. And this is what I'm going to leave you guys with, because from this point forward, guys, I am not going to put up with it any longer. You guys ever heard of it? And once again, I never name drop, but I'm going to start doing it to make an example out of these dickheads who think they're doing a good job promoting the sport. Well, far from it. They expose their ignorance. And they make things much harder for real journalists who actually care about doing a good job, not only for the health of the sport, but themselves as well as these fighters. There's a channel. I think his name is Broadway Joel. And his primary focus is on Dominican boxing. I just saw a clip where this guy was beating his chest because he had a terribly unprofessional, kamikaze-like interview with a very good person like Mauricio Suleiman. And it became terribly evident that this guy not only wasn't a journalist, but didn't know what the fuck he was talking about within the business of boxing. And so, yes, we're going to make examples. Everyone affiliated to this channel, we're going to start making examples out of these fucking idiots who don't know what they're doing, who espouse all kinds of nonsense. Once again, most diehard fans, they don't know any better. So it's like the blind leading the blind. They've become cancerous to the health of our beloved boxing. So guess what? We're going to make examples out of them on this channel from this point forward. These guys are terribly cancerous to the sport. And once again, if he understood the business of boxing, he would understand that Mauricio Suleiman, boy, he's become virtually powerless because of the exclusive deals that these promoters have with these platforms now. Look at all of the fights that he mandated at the last WBC convention. How many fights actually came to fruition and were actually made? Very few of them. Guys, the sanctioning organizations are powerless, basically, in this version of the business. And so this idiot took it upon himself to just beat him over the head because his pom-pom waving ass didn't get to see Carlos Adames versus Jermall Charlo. And he ended up making a huge portion of the interview all about that. And then he wants to beat his chest like he's a real journalist. Brother, if you were a real journalist, you would understand that one, Carlos Adames, he doesn't give a shit. He's happy by getting the WBC interim trinket. Because and once again, he doesn't mind. One, he doesn't have to fight someone like Jermall to get a title, a recognized title. And once again, recognized by whom? Recognized by the networks. That's most important. And he stands to make a lot more money, even just having a minor trinket around his waist. That's what you depend on if you're not a ticket seller. So this idiot stood up and insulted Mauricio Suleiman for something that, well, the fighter that he's pom-pom waving for didn't even care. Didn't even care about. Made himself look like a jackass. And once again, it just recently happened again. I think it was yesterday. Our brother Rick Glazer, right? And once again, I told you guys how I actually originally met Rick Glazer on one of his shows. I was working with a promoter. A fight or an opponent fell off the card, and this guy was going to be in the main event. So we had to, and this was a week and a half before the fight card was supposed to be staged. Tickets had already been sold. We couldn't afford to have him fall off the card. That would have been catastrophic for the event. So someone had recommended Rick, said, if you need a last-minute opponent, call this guy. He's reliable and he's quick. He's very efficient. You got to pay for it, but call him if you're in a pinch. And so I reached out to Rick, never talked to him before. And yeah, it happened within 90 minutes. He said, who's your fighter? I told him, what's his record? Okay. And how many rounds? He's in the 6 or 8 round stage. Okay. Well, that's going to be a little more pricey. And he said, let me see what I can do. I'll be in touch. I'll call you back in less than an hour. He called me back in about 30 minutes. He said, I've got the perfect guy. It's going to cost you $7,000. And then obviously you're going to have to compensate me and give me my agent's fee, right? But it's a done deal. Just pay for the airfare for him and his trainer. Pay for a 6-round fight in the main event. Take care of me, and it's a done deal. Done within 90 minutes. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, Rick yesterday was on a channel. And I was shocked because this is a guy who actually does a lot of interviews with my brother on, I think, what the hell's the name of his channel? YSM Sports. He always does a great job. Very good. He's very good at what he does, and he's always very respectful. You will never see him do a kamikaze hatchet job like that prick Broadway Joel, right? And he's based out of Philly. And I was shocked to see that manager Marty is what he calls himself. Asked Rick to come on his show. And according to Rick, he told him, hey, I just want to, since you're an active guy in this business, you've been in this business for over 30 years. I'd like to talk about the business for my listeners. And Rick agreed to it. Now, what happened? As soon as it goes on, it's billed as a debate. And because he understands that Rick Glazer has a disdain for anything PBC, Showtime, and Al Heyman, that he actually tried to debate him. And what he did was it exposed him for what a fraud and how ignorant he is. He knew nothing about the business, not even understanding what a detriment to the health of the sport is to overpay fighters. He didn't know shit. And he started, just arguing with Rick. Well, Rick's a real guy. He's a legit guy. So he had had enough. And he said, what are you, stupid? Are you some fucking clown? You invite me on here to just try and debate me when it's obvious that you don't know shit about the business? And he hung up on him, terminated the call. Guys, I am sick of this shit. Like, these YouTubers are fucking nuts. I'm not saying all of them, because there are great channels with great guys who actually are working members of this business, like G Funky. He goes and covers these events. He does interviews with these guys. cares about the health of the sport. Like my brother, J.R. Bell, James Bell from the Boxing Source. He doesn't have to do this. He doesn't do this for money. He genuinely cares about the health of the sport. And he's been an active member of this business, covering fight cards. All of them for the past 10 years, just like G Funky. But be warned, guys. Most of these guys have these terrible egos. And why? They've never or will ever work a minute within this business. They know nothing about it. They're glorified fanboys and haters with microphones and a camera. And they're idiots. And once again, the old saying, if you can't help, don't hinder. Guys, these assholes are doing nothing to successfully promote our favorite pastime. They're hindering its growth. Now, mainstream and casuals, they'll look at this and go, gosh, if this guy's so upset about it, and if all this guy does is scream and holler about and complain about his supposed favorite pastime, why the fuck should I watch? But once again, these guys, they're idiots. They don't understand. So if I see any YouTube page, YouTube channel, treat any working member of this business with disrespect and try to make an example out of them, and I'm going to make an example out of them, because they're nothing but a bunch of fucking frauds, a bunch of know-nothing twats, a bunch of ignorant buffoons. And they're trying to make money off of our beloved pastime from these fans who don't know any better, while not knowing a damn thing about our business. It's sinful if you love boxing. And guys, I'm just not going to put up with it any longer. Like I said, I never name drop. But I will say this. Broadway Joel, he's not a journalist. He wouldn't know a damn thing about it. And he definitely doesn't know anything about the business of boxing. And that was terribly apparent when he did that hatchet job on Mauricio Suleiman. And once again, there are a lot of things that I criticize about the WBC. But if I were to conduct an interview with Mauricio, and I have in the past, not Mauricio, but his dad, Jose. Jose was a great man. But once again, WBC is sanctioning organizations. You already know how I feel about them. But because of the man that Jose is, or he was, and because of that, I would always be respectful. And I would ask insightful questions about the WBC and their involvement in boxing. He deserves that much. Everyone who busts their ass in a very thankless cause like boxing at this time. And let me tell you, it's a hard sport where it's very difficult to make money on any level. Anyone involved with this sport, and once again, I'll be honest with you guys, Javen Sugar Hill Stewart, he's one of my best friends in this business. And he has been reluctant to do any interviews because of the hatchet jobs that people have done to some of his interviews. Well, they will take a statement out of context and completely attach it to their bullshit fan-driven narrative. And it's caused a lot of, misconception within his, and I'm not gonna name fighters at this time, but it's caused a lot of misconceptions surrounding his efforts in his career. And it could possibly affect his client list. So I'm just not going to put up with it anymore. If people keep regurgitating this nonsense, all because they want to shove a bullshit narrative to an ignorant fan who doesn't know any better and to try and make money off of this, yeah, I'm going to call them out. It's high time someone does. They're terrible for the health of the sport, and they're a cancer. And I'm sick of it. So anyway, guys, that's what I'm going to leave you with. And guys, just know that I've already talked with Rick Glazier about this. And we're going to talk about that interview and expose that fraud manager Marty on his Monday night show with G Funky. Look forward to that. Also, guys, I have convinced Javen to come on, and I said, look, you can trust. He goes, look, I know I can trust you, and I know your listeners, if they're listening to your show, then they're much smarter than Barbershop Quartet or whatever the hell that channel was that tried to do a hatchet job on him several years ago with Glovegate and all that nonsense. He goes, but I was surprised. Guys, I thought I could trust. And they made this just to fit the Usyk narrative about taking what I said out of context, that I was here for another fighter of mine and not Fury. Yeah, it's really caused a lot of distress in my professional and personal life. And honestly, I'm afraid that I'm going to come on and say something and they're going to hack what I say and take it out of context in your interview, and they're going to apply it to some more bullshit. You notice that he was in Vegas the entire time on the Crawford-Spence fight. He didn't do one interview with any major media outlet. And that's why. So, guys, I've convinced him to come on the show next week. But trust me, it took some doing. And once again, because of my affiliation and my work with Emmanuel, yeah, Javen is like family to me. And once again, guys, these disrespectful, just fanboy, narrative-pushing idiots, they make it that much harder for someone who actually wants to do a good job for the diehard fans of the sport. You guys deserve to understand the truth. You guys deserve to know where all of your dollars are dispersed if you do support your favorite pastime financially. And you guys deserve to understand how it affects the business and the sport as a whole when you don't. So that's why we do what we do. That's why we're here. We're not in it to try and make a fucking buck. We're not in it to stoke our own egos. We do it because we have a passion for this business, and we owe it to the business, and we owe it to the fans. We are here for you guys. Guys, thank you for being a special part of my Friday night. Once again, this is very rare air for me, right? Once again, I not out with my ex, never will be again. And yeah, I'm not drinking anymore. So thank you for being a part of my Friday evening, guys. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of yours. I'm sorry I didn't get to all the comments, but, well, you know what happens when I start going off, right? Anyway, God bless all of you guys. And tune in to James Gogi, post-fight, Navarrete versus Valdez. Post-fight, Joshua versus Hellenius. And post-fight, Emmanuel Rodriguez versus Melvin Lopez. We're going to be visiting with Gogi on Sunday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. So, guys, thank you so much for starting off my weekend on a great way. I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the fights, guys, all of them, regardless of platform. And I know you guys will, because you guys are real fans of boxing. You really appreciate what these guys put themselves through on a regular basis for your entertainment. And I tip my hat to all of you. God bless all of you guys. And once again, don't forget to support your beloved boxing on every level. Go buy a ticket to these club shows. They need it. Go to one of these local gyms. Do an interview, guys. Send it to me. I'll put it on my channel if you guys don't already have it. Have one. But guys, do your part. Give back to the sport that's, well, giving you great memories throughout your entire lives. Guys, God bless all of you guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you after the fights.
FightSaga.com and Halftime Pizza proudly present WAWR Week Radio Chats with ring announcer and commentator Joseph Heron.